Truth. This is your host, Grandmaster Sir Patrick Mack. You want to play a game of chess with me, Patriot? You want to test your mettle against yours truly? You want to have a go? Ooh, you didn't expect that, did you? My moves are off the board. That's how I'd strategize. Yeah, what's up, little neck crank? You didn't see that coming? What? We got some new Q posts for you here. Post 4281, 22 minutes after the hour of 11. Q says, how about a nice game of chess? And Q is referencing the 1983 film entitled War Games, which was directed by a guy named John Badham. But let's not kid yourself. If you slow that down, it's bad ham. So say it slowly so that you'll know it's bad ham, and I think that's funny. The film also features Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy, and I want to show you a little clip that references this line right here. Check it out.
Hello, Joshua.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play. How about a nice game of chess?
Okay, so there is the line for reference, but I want to give a little context with the film here for those of you who haven't seen it. This is a 1983 film, and there's Matthew Broderick right there with his girlfriend, Ali Sheedy. He is a young hacker named David Lightman, and he breaks into this supercomputer. But what's interesting about this supercomputer is that it was designed to predict possible outcomes of nuclear war. Sounds a little bit like looking glass technology, right? And he's doing this to all kinds of things. He does this with his school district's computer, and incidentally, he's doing this for his classmate whose name is Jennifer Mack. Probably just a coincidence. Anyway, there's a point in this movie where he's dialing all these different numbers, and he ends up dialing this one number in Sunnyvale, California. He later realizes that this phone number connects to the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. How about that? Mystic Mac was just talking about that in his video from yesterday entitled Deeper. We were talking about the death of Air Force Colonel Thomas Falterano, who commanded the Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado, as well as the Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station. Probably just another coincidence. Anyway, hijinks ensue, and they up the DEFCON level, and everyone thinks we're going to war with the Soviet Union. I'm not going to give away the movie, but it all works out in the end. How about that? And the computer suggests a nice game of chess. By the way, for anyone who cares, in this particular scene, Matthew Broderick is talking to the computer, and he asks his girlfriend if she wants to hear the sound. She's like, yeah, let me hear the sound. She's not really concerned with all the other hoopties or anything like that. And so he turns it on, and the speaker is right above his head, that little gray box you see above his head in the background there. And he turns it on, and you can hear the old school computer sound. Shall we play a game? And the girlfriend gets all stoked, runs over, picks up the box, and you realize it's not even plugged in. She starts shaking it. There's all these fancy hoopties in the room, and she's fascinated with the talk box. She's like, wow, the talkie comes out of the box. Wow. Ditch the dumb broad, Broderick. The link Q gives us is to chessworld.com entitled Chess Strategy. What do you need to know about strategy and tactics, from Yuri Markushin. And I will let you read this for yourself, although we will pick out a couple of points here. But there are some really interesting tips to the game of chess. As we know, it's a very patient game, very strategic game. And I want to point this out here, the very top one right here. If a player sees that he is a piece up, a good chess strategy would be to exchange pieces, to simplify the position, and to move into the endgame, which should be a no-brainer to win. Meaning that if you know that you're already up a few pieces, or even just a piece, if you just go tit for tat and take pieces off the board, you'll eventually remove enough pieces that you will be able to show your dominance and make the game a lot easier. But let's go back to the Q post. Q says objective end, is to checkmate the king. And Q has asked us about this before. Are we trying to kill the king? Well, in the game, you don't really ever kill the king. You checkmate the king. You put a king in a position where they can no longer move. That's when the game ends. Do you attack the king at the beginning of the game? Not necessarily. A lot of times you set the stage and you go after pieces. Now, of course, there's a ton of different kinds of strategies there, but that's essentially what you're doing, is you're removing so much of the board so that you can get to the king. And I want to point out back here that one of the points that this guy makes here is talking about the king's safety, factoring in the king's safety, your own and the opponent's. And it's really important to consider the opponents. What kind of moves will they make in order to protect their king? That's going to really help you develop your own strategy. Q says, do you attack and remove the pawns first? Generally you set up position and then you go after these kind of pieces that are in the way first. Do you attack and remove bishops, rooks, knights next? Well, these are the next level pieces, right? They have different kinds of moves and they can all kind of go different ways, but you have to get at them first because they are going to be the ones that are really going to protect the queen and protect the king. Do you attack and remove queen mid to end? Well, that kind of depends. I would say a lesser skilled player, when they're first learning chess, they realize that the queen is the most powerful piece, right? This queen can go all kinds of ways. So a lot of times a unskilled player will use that queen too much, move it all over the board, but what they don't realize is that when you expose your queen is also in danger. So yes, the queen can cause a lot of damage, but once your queen is done, that piece is taken off. So if you can have the patience to hold it back until later in the game, the impact of the queen will be that much greater. And Yuri backs up my point here by saying a good chess strategy would be not to develop a queen early in the game, because it can become a target and accelerate the opponent's development. Don't give your opponent something for nothing. There are exceptions to this rule, however. If one wins material by, say, forking opponent's bishop and king, it's sure a good chess strategy to take advantage of it to develop a queen and win material. Q says, is the game being played public or private? Well, I think we can all understand at this point that this is private. What we're seeing in the mainstream media narrative is something completely different to what we're really being exposed to. And I think the story of Colonel Fazzarano is a very good example of this, right? Do emotions affect critical thinking? Yes, they do. And we see it all the time. We see it in the media. We see it with ourselves. We see it all over the place. When you get emotional, you tend to want to pop off. Add important king control pieces, and in brackets it says eliminate rogue elements. Add, how do you set the stage, board in brackets, regarding public opinion, optics? That could be referencing the 8-Kun board as well. And that's been going on now for a couple of years. Almost like we're setting the stage for something there too. And if you'll remember, Q's very first post is something that has not yet happened, talking about the arrest of Hillary Clinton. And that's a pretty big claim. But what it did was attract a lot of attention and set the stage for a narrative that has gone on for nearly 3 years now, right? So that's a pretty big deal. There's a lot of stage setting. Same thing going on in the media. We talked about it yesterday with this drip, drip, drip policy, right? Everything has been dripping out for a very, very long time, because after a while it becomes very overwhelming and it becomes familiar. Like I said, with CNN being in the airports all the time, you probably didn't really notice it at first, but then after a while you start realizing, wait a minute, I'm only seeing CNN. That's probably after it's been there for years, right? That's how optics works. It's a little bit of a pain, but that is the patience of the game of chess. And then Q quotes Bill Barr here at this time, and this was talking about whether or not Bill Barr was going to go after Obama, who I would suspect is the king that we're talking about. I know there's some disagreement there, but you can let me know what you think. But either way, Bill Barr was mentioning at this time, no criminal investigations going into Biden or Obama. Now, we don't know. That could mean later. And that's what Q seems to be suggesting. Something at this time seems to be very key. And I know there's a lot of people that were emailing me talking about, hey, Patrick, these people could be up for military tribunals. And I want to point out that you could be right, but the only reason I'm not pushing that narrative right now is because he didn't say it. And I don't want to plug in a narrative to Bill Barr because of something that he omitted or didn't say. I don't think that's responsible of me to do, but I don't want to disagree with that either. That could be possible. We could be talking about military tribunals. I just want want to point out that Bill Barr's didn't say it. Bill Barr's only one Bill Barr. There's only one Bill Barr, and he didn't say it. I want to take you over to this channel here that you may have seen before. This is referencing a famous chess battle between Ivanov and Kudrin, 1989, a couple of grandmasters like yours truly. This is entitled Best Chess Moves Ever, and Q has turned us on to this before, but the reason I want to show you this is that because there is a specific strategy that is being referenced here that I think many of you are probably familiar with, but if you are not, I want to walk you through it here, and I just want to do it briefly because I am not actually a chess grandmaster, but I want to show you the idea here. But as you can see, black team and white team down here, I don't know why they got to make it about race. But anyway, you can see that this rook here puts this pawn in danger, and this is kind of a key move here. You will see now that the white rook has overtaken that, and then this rook is going to go and overtake this rook, as you'll see in just a second here, okay? Now this appears to be the key move here, where this lowly little pawn will slide up into this position here, which is known as D5, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is kind of where the tide sort of shifts in the game here. You can see that the white queen is entrenched in the black team's enemy territory, right? And it looks like the white team is huddled over here in the corner. Well, this little move right here obviously could be negated by either pawn, but as you'll see, it will set off a chain of events involving this bishop right here, and we're not going to go through the rest of the game, but this is the key point right here where this white pawn ventures into territory known as D5. Q has referenced D5 quite a few times, and of course Julian Assange and Q have referenced not only chess but this chess match. So that appears to be the key move right there. If you want to watch how this all plays out, come check this out. Best Chess Moves Ever, D5 Ivanov versus Kudrin, 1989. I will link it down below for you if you are on YouTube, but if you are not, you can look that up and you can watch it play out on multiple channels on YouTube or wherever you're watching. Post 4282, 35 minutes out to the hour 11. We get a little common sense here. POTUS daily ingest HCQ prevent COVID-19. All right, well, first of all, let's get you all hip with the lingo around here. The HCQ, which stands for hydroxychloroquine, we just call it the D-ROX. Okay, so when we see HCQ, we're just going to call it the D-ROX. Prevent the Cov, and we just call that the Rona. You can call it the Cov if you want, if you're from the younger, whatever you want to call it. Does the D-ROX prevent the Rona? Looks like it may. Pre-announcement, tools, sources, data, COV1 versus COV2 analysis, etc., provided to factually challenge narrative. Okay, so you may have noticed that just the other day, POTUS comes out and announces to everybody that he's been taking the D-ROX. How about that? Because everybody's been freaking out about this whole thing, saying that it was deadly and that it was untested and that everything was simply anecdotal. Next thing you know, POTUS is like, yeah, well, I'm on the D-ROX. What? And I think he was waiting to announce this so that we could get enough scientific information out there to show that this is indeed something that is very valid. Look, we know this has been tested since 1955. It's been administered to millions of people. I would imagine if you know anybody in your life that has lupus, they may be familiar with this. They've been taking this for quite some time. I have a friend that's been taking this for quite some time. The fact of the matter is that whether we know this is going to actually cure COVID-19 itself, we may not know. But what we do know is that people have been taking it safely for decades. And that's what's extremely important, because the mainstream media is telling you that it's actually dangerous. Well, that kind of falls flat on its face when President Trump comes out, and I'm pretty sure this is almost the exact words that he said. I'm paraphrasing probably a little bit, but he's like, yeah, you know, I've been taking it for a few weeks now, and I'm still here. Full attacks against the D-ROX by the media Democrats. Why? Why wouldn't the media Ds want to work on all fronts to find a possible solution? Immediate dismissal. Yeah, it's funny how they want to take this and they want to immediately say that something's wrong with this. And yet they're banging the war drums of looking for a solution. They're like, wow, if we could only find a solution, maybe we could find a vaccine. And I hear over there in Sri Lanka, they're looking for something. And POTUS is like, what about the D-ROX, yo? And they're like, no. Why doesn't the media want the pandemic rearranged dem panic to slow stop? Because they want you to be panicked. So they're in a panic. They're saying, I got the Rona. I got the Rona. Remember just a few weeks ago, everybody was getting the Rona. All the celebrities are getting the Rona. How come the celebrities aren't getting the Rona this week? Why doesn't the media, Democrats, want society to heal and recover? Because they want you to think that everybody's got the Rona. You know who doesn't have the Rona? This guy. Why doesn't the media, Democrats, want people to no longer fear going outside? Well, I think it has to do with a lot of things, but first of all, they want to take away your rights. But remember, if you're sitting inside, you're not getting any sunlight. Sunlight is full of vitamin D, and vitamin D is one of the most important elements you could get in your body. Incidentally, I just remembered her name. It was Dr. Rhonda Patrick. That was who I was talking about a couple of videos ago. Don't worry about it if you don't know what I'm talking about. But this was a doctor that was talking about the importance of vitamin D on Joe Rogan's show. Why doesn't the media, Democrats, want people to point the finger at China as a source? Because it comes from China. And because if you find out that it comes from China, you're going to start tracing where it goes, where all the funding came from. And that's going to go right back to these same deep state knuckleheads that want you to stay inside. Why does the media, Democrats, want people in return to work normal daily lives? So there's an N missing there. I'm imagining it's significant. I'm not exactly sure what it means just yet, but maybe in another show or so we'll be able to figure that out. But there is a missing N in this doesn't right here. Who benefits the most? Why does corporate media, D, attempt to control us? Why does corporate media, D, challenge, attack anyone who defies pushed, coordinated narrative? Because they only want you to think one thing, that this thing's going to take forever. We're going to need you to lock down. We're going to need to stick you with something. We're going to need to track you with something, and you need to stay afraid. Why does corporate media attempt to prevent individual critical thinking? Because that was never the plan to begin with. Look, their end game was probably a little bit further off, and when Trump got elected as president, they realized that they needed to push a lot harder, and that's exactly what they're doing right now, which is probably why everything seems so ridiculous, because they're just throwing up a bunch of Hail Marys. But that's the fact of the matter. They have to push this agenda at this point. They've been doing this for decades upon decades, and this is a long-term plan. They wanted you to eventually become a bunch of little robot vessels. Is this about the virus or something else? It is about the election. It is about your freedom. It is about a new world order. All those conspiracy theories that you were taught were just conspiracy theories, it's about that. Everything is at stake this election. Yeah, I would agree. And when Q says this is not just about a 4-year election, I can't help but think that this whole 4-year period was simply about winning, making sure that we win, so that we can actually see things happen in the next 4 years. Now, that may feel like it's kicking the can down the road, but look at how many things we've had to contend with just getting there. So you can see that the stakes are high for this next election, and we have to get up and show out. And that's exactly why they're trying to get you to stay home and mail it in. Post 4283, 44 minutes after the hour of 11. Just a couple of posts back, it was 11:22. Now it's 11:44. I think that's cool. When does your enemy expend ammunition? Well, usually when they're in danger. Do you expend ammunition against a weak opponent? Not usually. Not usually. Do you expend ammunition against a non-threat? Not if you're smart. Critical thinking, media cluster bombs, attacks versus POTUS. Critical thinking, media cluster bombs, attacks versus Q being you. You is Q and POTUS. So it's you and POTUS and Q and me and Q plus that are being attacked. Because we're a threat. We're not a non-threat. We're not a weak opponent, which is why they're expending ammunition. Get it? I figured you did. Post 4284, 4 minutes after the hour of 12, we got a link to the Hill. Q says infiltration, not invasion, for future events. The link takes you to a 2016 Hill article, and I want to cruise through a little bit of this here because there are some important pieces that I would like to point out. But this is talking about her ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. For those of you not familiar, Huma Abedin was the handler, top aide to the Clinton campaign, and she's got a lot of ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. The New York Post ran a detailed investigative piece over the weekend about Miss Abedin's work at the Journal of Muslim Minority Affairs from 1995 through 2008, a Sharia law journal whose editor-in-chief was Abedin's own mother. Now, her mother, Saleha Abedin, sits on the Presidency Staff Council of the International Islamic Council for Dawah and Relief, a group that is chaired by the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi. But down here it says the Clinton surrogate group Media Matters claimed predictably there was no evidence that Miss Abedin or her family had ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, and that Trump campaign staffers who spoke of these ties were conspiracy theorists. So there's that word again, conspiracy theorists. They like to toss that out. But these ties are very, very clear. And let me show you another tie, of course, that's pretty easy to figure out. Media Matters, David Brock. David Brock used to date James Alefantis. James Alefantis, major Clinton donor, owner of Qmap Pizza, Pizza Gate. To debunk that evidence, Media Matters pointed to a Snopes fact-check piece that cited as its sole source Senator No Name McCain, who we just talked about the other day too. Sorry about this red text here. I have an ad blocker on here. Let me take you to this black part right here. This is the same John McCain who met Libyan militia leader Abdelkarim Bellaj, a known al-Qaeda associate, and saluted him as my hero during a 2011 visit to Benghazi. And let's remember that Q has been posting this meme with the picture of the Benghazi soldiers that were slain. Senator McCain and others roundly criticized Representative Michelle Bachmann in 2012 when she and four members of the House Permanent Select Committee Intelligence and the House Judiciary Committee cited Miss Abedin in letters sent to the Inspectors General of the Department of Defense, Department of State, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, warning about Muslim Brotherhood infiltration of the United States government. Yeah, this was really huge, and they went after Michelle Bachmann. And if you'll remember the key term they used, witch hunt. Let me skip you down a little further here. The evidence, in my opinion, is overwhelming. Huma Abedin is nothing short of a Muslim Brotherhood princess, born into an illustrious family of Brotherhood leaders. Her father, Syed Zainul Abedin, was a professor in Saudi Arabia who founded the Institute for Muslim Minority Affairs, an institution established by the government of Saudi Arabia with the support of the Muslim World League. So I think you see what's up here. Infiltration as opposed to invasion. You can talk about the Awan brothers. You can talk about Valerie Jarrett and her family. You can go all the way back to the Weatherman Underground and even before that if you really want to. But I think we see the infiltration, and of course Q is hinting at Huma Abedin, and it wouldn't surprise me if this would be the way to get to Hillary, eventually Benghazi, and maybe open things back up once again. But my guess is still that Hillary is our queen, protecting that king, which would be Obama. Let's move on to 4285, 51 minutes after the hour of 12. There's three links here, and we're just going to cruise through them because I think we understand here what's going on very well. China wants to patent Gilead's experimental coronavirus drug. Okay, well, Gilead's just another one of those Bill Gates rackets, right? And now they're over there in China trying to actually get a patent here. The Wuhan Institute of Virology, based in the Chinese city at the center of the epidemic, has applied for a patent in China for the use of the antiviral drug known as remdesivir in treating the ailment. The application was made on January 21st together with a military academy, according to a February 4th statement on the Institute's website. Okay, so if they can't get it done in the United States, why not try to do it over there in China? Now, the second link takes you to a 2001 article from the GatesFoundation.org talking about these groups right here: the World Health Organization, of course, UNICEF, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They've been collaborating for quite some time to make sure you get stuck with something. And the third article, I think, is actually just taking you down here, letting you know who some of these people are. Dr. Margaret Chan, Director General of WHO. Dr. Anthony Fauci, wow, how about that? Director of NIAID and longtime friend of Bill Gates. So you see what's up. UNICEF's being represented here. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, of course, it's their website, and all these knuckleheads, so on and so forth. They've been collaborating for quite some time. They've been involved in quite some time. And like I said, that third link is just highlighting this right here, some of the people that are involved. And if you scroll down far enough, sure enough, there he is, Anthony S. Fauci. Let's move on to 4286, 15 minutes after the hour of 1. We get a YouTube link right here for some explosive new developments. Check it out.
Hey, Mr. President Joe Biden, how are you?
Very well indeed.
as usual, when I hear your voice. Thank you very much.
Well, you are doing very well. Congratulations on getting the new prosecutor general. I know there's a lot more that has to be done, but I really think that's good, and I understand you're working with the rod in the coming days on a number of additional laws to secure the IMF. So, but congratulations on installing the new prosecutor general. It's going to be critical for him to work quickly to repair the damage Shokin did. And I'm a man of my word. And that now that the new prosecutor general is in place, we're ready to move forward in signing that new $1 billion loan guarantee. And I don't know how you want to go about that. I'm not going to be able to get to Kyiv anytime soon, meaning the next month or so. And I don't know whether you could either sign it with our ambassador, or if you came here, we could sign it, or if you want, we're inviting Groisman here later. I'm going to be talking to him later this morning, not for that purpose. We're inviting him to Washington, and so I'll leave it up to you as to how you want that done and when you want it done.
First of all, thank you very much indeed for these words of support. Believe me that it was a very tough challenge and very difficult job, and Mrs. Timoshenko and Mr. Leshko fraction tried to break this, because we not only voted for the new prosecutor general, which we do in a very short period of time, within 1 day we changed the law. By the way, in this law we presenting the new structure of the General Prosecutor Office, including the General Inspection, as we agreed with
that's real.
And the second thing, I immediately invite Lutsenko and said that he should contact your embassy, and I would be very pleased if you will have a certain person who can come either from Washington or whenever. We have here, I don't remember his name, the Ukrainian origin American prosecutor. He is a little bit old. I sent to the Jeffrey his name, and he was ready to come and to be assistant and advisor. With a very good experience in the American system, and he can be the person of trust with the new prosecution system. I think this is exactly the right time to do that, and if he is still ready to come and to cooperate from the very first step, from the very first minute of the new prosecutor, that is exactly what I'm looking for.
Well, let me get in contact with the Justice Department and pursue that. I'll get his name and let me find out where that is, because it is in our interest, obviously, to provide professional assistance as quick as we can, so this gets up and started in the right direction. So I will move on that as soon as we hang up. I'll put that in train, and I'll get back to you as to what I'm able to do.
Absolutely. The second thing, thank you very much indeed. This is exactly what I'm looking for. The second thing is that I want to thank you that you give me your word that immediately when we change the legislation and I appoint the new prosecutor general, and it would be Yuri Lutsenko, as we agreed on our previous meeting in Washington, and when it happened, we can have this loan guarantee, and thank you very much.
Okay, this is some fun stuff, and this comes from this YouTube page right here, which is the actual link that Q gave us, NABU being the anti-corruption board out there in Ukraine. And you may remember the quote from Artem Sitnik a while back from NABU. He was talking about how Hillary Clinton would always been their person they really would have wanted to have win, as opposed to President Trump, who would have been a lot more difficult. But these videos have to do with Joe Biden and John Kerry. Now, I've not checked them all out. I've only played you this one here, but there's a longer one that looks to be the most recent here, about an hour or something. I'm probably going to go check them out after I'm finished here. But they involve John Kerry. But as you can clearly see, Joe Biden was offering up a quid pro quo. So if you remember, this all kind of started back in around 2012. The Ukrainian prosecutor general, Viktor Shonka, he started investigating the CEO of Burisma, Mykola Zlochevsky. And this led to something. He appointed Shokin Shokin. Actually, it ended up being Poroshenko himself who had appointed Shokin into his role. But Shokin took over this, Viktor Shokin, and in 2016, this led to the arrest of some of the property of Zlochevsky, the Burisma CEO. So this was a big deal, and what this was starting to unravel were some of the connections where we eventually saw Hunter Biden played a big role in this. At least he was getting a ton of coin. That's what seems to have prompted Joe Biden to do this quid pro quo. You need to fire this Shokin. And that's what they did. It looks like they made a little bit of a deal. Now, there was a second prosecutor. They actually tried to get another person in there too. There was a second prosecutor that essentially came up with the same result, and this was a big time pressure. So Joe Biden was threatening to withhold some money unless they dropped this. They fired Shokin, they fired the other guy, now they're going after him. And it looks like in this video here, Poroshenko is kind of lobbying that they appoint this Lutsenko. Looks like one of their guys. So that appears to be the deal right there. And here we have it all on tape. Can't wait to hear the rest. I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably heard it even before me. So don't give me any spoilers. I'm going to check it out for myself. But either way, this is big, big stuff. And just like that faucet right there shows, drip, drip, drip. Post 4287, 17 minutes after the hour of 2. The Twitter status is to CBS Catherine Herridge, who says, developing declassified Rice email documenting White House meeting January 5th, 2017, obtained CBS News. Ooh, well, let's take a little look-see at it, shall we? On January 5th, following a briefing by IC leadership on Russian hacking during the 2016 presidential election, President Obama had a brief follow-on conversation with FBI Director Jim Comey and Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates in the Oval Office. Vice President Biden and I were also present. And of course, this is coming from Susan Rice. President Obama began the conversation by stressing his continued commitment to ensuring that every aspect of this issue is handled by the intelligence and law enforcement communities by the book. I wonder if that's the counterinsurgency guide that they're talking about. Maybe it's Rules for Radicals. Maybe that was the book they were using. I don't know. The president stressed that he is not asking about initiating or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. He reiterated that our law enforcement teams need to proceed as it normally would by the book. Okay, she wants to keep letting us know that it's by the book. So let me take you down to the declassified paragraph here. Director Comey affirmed that he is proceeding by the book as it relates to law enforcement. From a national security perspective, Comey said he does have some concerns that incoming NSA Flynn is speaking frequently with Russian Ambassador Kislyak. Comey said that could be an issue as it relates to sharing sensitive information. President Obama asked if Comey was saying that the NSC should not pass sensitive information related to Russia to Flynn. Comey replied, potentially. He added that he has no indication thus far that Flynn has passed classified information to Kislyak, but he noted that the level of communication is unusual. Okay, so long story short here, this looks like the cover-up to the unmasking that they were already doing before these calls even took place. Post 4288, 31 minutes after the hour of 2. The Twitter status is to Sky Shots at Maverick in the Sky, and I'm like, hey, Maverick, you can be my wingman anytime. And Sky Shots is like, no, IPOT, you can be mine. And you see the quote there, but we're going to check out the video. So check out the video.
And breaking today, this is important. The Attorney General, Bill Barr, said Joe and Barack, they may not likely face persecution in the Durham probe as of now. Okay? Now, while the media mob is, well, visibly breathing a collective sigh of relief, they're actually missing the powerful message from the Attorney General. Pay very close attention, because the headline of what his remarks were missed by most people in the mob. Take a look.
Over the past few decades, there have been increasing attempts to use the criminal justice system as a political weapon. What happened to the president in the 2016 election and throughout the first 2 years of his administration was abhorrent. It was a grave injustice, and it was unprecedented in American history. We saw two different standards of justice emerge, one that applied to President Trump and his associates, and the other that applied to everybody else. We can't allow this ever to happen again. The Durham investigation is trying to get to the bottom of what happened.
So there you go, and Q is once again reminding us of the term as of now. It seems to mean that as of now, maybe we don't have anything going on into Joe and Barack, but that doesn't mean that as of later, it might not. And as somebody who's from the near future, let me just tell you about the importance of the near future, as I'm telling it to you in the near past, which is now for you right now. Post 4289, 23 minutes after the hour of 3Q is responding to an Anon who says, yeah, wait a tad longer. We know. We're waiting patiently still. And then adds a little smiley face just to say, hey, I'm frustrated, but I get it. And the PB here is referring to a previous bread on 8kun, meaning a previous thread, just a slang. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah, a lot like covering these Q posts. It's a sprintathon. You just have to go fast for like a long time. Let's move on to 4290, 25 minutes after the hour of 5. We go back to this post from 4171, and it was talking about how in Wuhan, they didn't really have that long of a lockdown. It was 16 days, and they extended it for the Lunar New Year to February 9th. But it says right here, how long was Wuhan on lockdown? 76 days. How long was the remainder of China on lockdown? CNY extend January 24th through February 9th. And I'm sorry, I meant to say outside of Wuhan. They didn't really have much of a lockdown, suggesting that there wasn't much of a spread outside of Wuhan. Yet there was a ton of lockdowns in the U.S. That's exactly what they're talking about. And of course, the states here that are forecasting longer lockdowns are Democrat states: California, New York, Oregon, and Michigan. So it kind of makes sense, right? It's all sort of par for the course. Now, this article here is actually from Q, Costa Rica. Look at the title right there. It's got a little see it. Hydrochloroquine, the drug Costa Rica uses successfully to fight COVID-19. So, Rica is using the D-Rocks for the Rona. Interesting. And we're not going to go through this article, but I do want to point out that they did say that they've been using it ever since they had a conference with China on March 18th. March 18th, huh? Well, the quote here that Q is pointing out, hydroxychloroquine was used in Shanghai as the first line of treatment. The first line of treatment. So China themselves was using the D-Rocks as the first line of treatment. Meanwhile, MSNBC, CNN, with their 16-year-old girl Greta Thunberg, who's now a corona expert, I guess, they're telling you, stay away from the D-Rocks. We don't know. Anecdotal. Hasn't been tested. And POTUS is over here saying, well, you know, it's all up in my system. What you want? Huh? What you want? USA lockdown versus China lockdown, non-Wuhan days. Well, we just talked about it right there. Looks like it wasn't too bad outside the Wuhan. And I'll just tell you, in my neck of the woods, wasn't so bad. MSMDs, being Democrats, vested interest in censoring and attacking anything regarding the D-Rocks, being the HCQ, being the hydroxychloroquine, the hydroxychloroquinones. Why? Because you need to stay at home, stay sick, and not get your vitamin D and vote by mail and buy everything off of Amazon, except you don't have a job because you're no longer essential. You get the idea, right? It's this whole way of installing a whole new normal, which is the key term that they like to use these days. But it isn't the new normal. The new normal is going out and giving some bro hugs, all right? Maybe a little bit of hand sanitizer every once in a while. Don't be a freaking jerk. And if you get the Rona, maybe just a little bit of D-Rocks, a little bit of the Zithro, and a little bit of the zinc up in your system, and you should be good to go. I don't have it. Do you? Didn't think so. Those are your Q posts. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. All my alternate links are down below. If you want to send me something, please email me. That's also down below. And if you want to send something old school, my P.O. box is down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon is down below. It's all down below. And of course, if you're not on YouTube, it's not down below. But if you go over to YouTube, it will be down below. If you go over to my Twitter, it's also linked and pinned to my Twitter, so you can check it out there too. So there's a couple different options. And if you're already on an alternate platform, then I guess you didn't need it in the first place, did you? Either way, fist bumps to you. This is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay off the Rona.